So I got the one liner out of here by accident because there was a ridge on the liner and I was pushing up on the piston and it just happened to pop out the liner too. So I want to get the rest of these out, but I know they're going to be a struggle. So I just made this quick little puller here. I just measured what I need on the bottom of the liner. I made that little piece of steel there, put a hole through it. And then on the top, I figured I could make a steel piece, but then I need to protect the top of the block anyway. So I figured, you know what, it's not going to put a lot of force on it, so I'll just make it out of wood. I know it seems silly, but it should work. And it was quick and easy to make. So let's pull these other 3 liners out of here, and then we can kind of assess where to go from there. Alright, so you can see there's lots of crumblies in there, so we got to get this all cleaned out. And I got to get the O-rings out of there, because the way these liners work is that the O-rings go into the block first, and then you put the liner in there. Some liners have the O-rings built into them, probably more often than not, but not this. You can see on this one here, there's a lot of stuff in there. I almost want to vacuum that stuff out, because I can't really reach around from the bottom side and blow it this way. There's not really room in there to do that. And I don't really want to blow all that stuff into the bottom of the engine either. So I think the only way to really do this is to get a vacuum cleaner with a small hose on the end. So now that I got the block all cleaned up and I got the O-rings removed, there's going to be 2 O-rings that go right down there, and then a third one you install on the liner before you put it in. Goes right down there. And these O-rings need to be lubed up, but you don't want to use a petroleum-based lubricant. You want to use something more derived from like soap. So I have this stuff. This is what we use for washing dishes and stuff, and there's no petroleum in here, not that I know of anyways. So this is a good lubricant for these O-rings here. So I'm going to coat these in this soap before I put them in. I'm going to put them in, and then I'm going to apply more on the inside surface. And I'm also going to put some on these cylinder liners. And it's probably not going to show up on camera that great, but I'm going to attempt to show you guys putting those O-rings in there. This last O-ring is like a flat O-ring, so you can definitely tell the difference between the other ones. Now you could put these in the freezer to make them go in easier, but I just didn't do that. So I'll definitely check for cylinder liner protrusion later, but let's put all 4 of them in first. I think it should be criminal that they don't put these in every single diesel engine. There's no reason why they can't do that. Most bigger machines and then medium duty to heavy duty trucks have them. But when you're talking about your pickup trucks and some of the engines in the medium duty trucks, they just don't have liners. And I don't know why. And then of course, mini excavators, skid steers, stuff like that, they all don't have them. Most of them don't have them. There is absolutely zero wear on that. There's not even an indication that this engine was even run. Honestly, with a bearing like that, I don't think I'm even gonna worry about changing these bearings. It's just not worth the effort. It really isn't. I mean, there's not even so much as a surface scratch on there. It's like it's brand new. It almost seems like someone rebuilt this engine and they just didn't have the right piston rings. That's what it really seems like. So I just want to show you guys what the proper ring gap should be. Look at that. That's the thickness of a piece of paper right there. Right on the money right there. 0.013. You guys can't really see that, but it says 0.013. And it just barely fits in there. Now if you take an old cylinder and an old ring, put it in there about half an inch down. Look at that gap right there. That's a giant gap. You can't even measure that with the feeler gauges. There's no feeler gauge that's even remotely close. You'd have to put like 5 of them together. And let me take the thickest ones. So if you took 4 of the thickest ones, it's about what that is. Actually, it's even wider than that. If you take all 4 of these, which is 26 thou, 28 thou, 30 thou, and 32 thou. Those all together, I can still fit more space in there. So whatever that adds up to, and then add like another 10 or 15 thou to that. That's what the ring gap is right now. That's an enormous, enormous ring gap. See what would happen if you put a new ring in this cylinder. Look at that. Well, yeah, there's still a pretty big gap in there, but not near as big as it was before. Actually, that's probably almost acceptable. So that is actually a 32 thou gap right there, which is, that's kind of way out of spec actually. So that tells you that this cylinder is worn down. But 32 thou is a lot better than 132 thou. Now let's check the width on this. It's 0.173. .174. You take an old ring and that's 0.142. So that's where a lot of the ring gap is coming from. It's coming from the fact that this is just worn down on the width of it. But also, some of it's from the cylinder, which could also be out of round too. So normally I get a one-piece ring compressor, but it was hard to find it for this because it's not a common size, I guess. So I'm sure I could have found one, but hold on. Alright, you're good. I keep forgetting that these rods kind of like go at an angle. It's like a 45-degree angle, so as it's going in, it's a little bit weird.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I really want this upside down right now is really what I want. But I guess that'll do.
Yep.
I'm not going to touch the inside of the bearing surface because it's not oiled yet. So you want to fully torque this, which they say 50 foot-pounds, and then another 90 to 100 degrees after that. So about a quarter turn. Now we're going to loosen them up and check the clearance. So you can see what we got there. And I'm actually a little bit concerned because the bottom is bigger than the top. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I'm going to do the test again. It's a little bit more difficult because normally you'd have this upside down to do this, but or you can have it the other way and then put it on the bearing first and then put it up there, but it's sideways because just the configuration of this engine stand. Oh, that's better. That's much better. Yeah, I don't know what happened the first time there. But you can see that that's like a little over a 1/16 of an inch wide. So if we put that on the chart, I'll show you that that specs out good. So right now we're right at about 2/1000. So if you look at the specs on this, they want, for connecting rod bearing to journal, they want between 12 thousandths and 40 thousandths. That's well within spec. As long as it's not too little, not too much, then we're good, and we are on the lower end of that. So that's pretty good. That means the crank is not worn at all. And it also means that it's not cut either, which I knew it wasn't, but I just wanted to check. But also another reason to check is just to make sure that the bearings are the right bearings. But I knew everything was going to be right. It's just you want to double check it while you have everything apart. So this stuff is actually oil soluble, so you could leave it on there and just put your assembly lube on and move on your way, but I like to wipe it off. So you can see the two different marks. I don't know what happened the first time. I'm not sure. Maybe the bearing wasn't all the way seated on the sides here. This is the crush part, and maybe it just wasn't quite seated. Maybe that gave it a false reading. Also, it is on the side, which I prefer to do it right in the middle. So maybe that made a difference. I've never done it on the side like that before. Maybe that was what it was. But in either case, I'm going to take some brake parts cleaner to this because I probably touched it. And it's okay to touch it as long as you got oil on your hands, but I don't think I had oil on my hands. So the acid on your hands will actually make it so that it'll have a fingerprint there, and on that fingerprint, the oil will kind of bead around that and it won't stick to that area. So you'll end up with a hot spot on the bearing. That's from the acids in your fingers. So if you have your fingers coated in oil, it's fine to touch that, but I don't know if I did or not, so it's not worth testing it. So I'm just going to brake parts cleaner that, and then we'll lube it up with assembly lube and put it back. And brake parts cleaner does a good job getting this plastic gauge off too, which again, I said doesn't really need to come off, but just take it off anyways. So there's a little locking tab here, and if you don't know which direction these go, these connecting rod caps have no marking on them as to which way they go. But since we know that the locking tab is there, we know that the locking tab always goes to the locking tab. So lock the lock. And just to let you guys know, I just opened a brand new pack of bearings and they had fingerprints on them. Actually, these ones do too. Right there. So, yep, right there. So I'm gonna brake clean these before I do anything. This one's a little bit harder to get to because got the oil pump tube pickup in the way, but it's not the end of the world. It's been a few weeks since I worked on this, but I want to get things reassembled here now that I got the track loader out of here. So I got surfaces cleaned up on the flywheel housing and on the block here. I was just trying out this gasket. But I need to replace the rear main seal, which is this right here. And they have all kinds of special tools that you're supposed to do that with. It's kind of a complicated situation. There's a two-piece seal here, and the inside is metal, and then it's got some sort of way to seal it between that and the outer part of it. And so to get it out, if this flywheel housing is off, I guess you can just tap this out, but then to put it back in, it's going to be a little bit complicated because they want you to put it back in after everything is assembled. So I can basically take it out right now, then I need to put this flywheel housing on there, and then I need to put the new seal back on. See, it says right on here, install dry, but they also want you to use a retaining compound to put it in. I believe on the outside and the inside surface. They want you to use a Loctite 609, but the only thing I could find locally was a sleeve retainer, which is basically the same stuff. This is just a slightly different formula, but I'm pretty sure it should work. This is a part number 64000. And I guess that just retains the outside from spinning, and it retains the inside from spinning on the crankshaft. But we can't put that on yet, so we got to put this on first. So I got a gasket for this, and they call for installing that dry. I cleaned up everything real good. They don't want any oil or any kind of liquids on here. Stuff, of course. Which, this stuff feels pretty slick. It almost feels like this would help the installation, because it's a pretty tight fit. I gotta tell you, I am not a fan of that. I don't know if that's gonna hold up or not. The problem is the two halves of this can separate by a lot, so I don't know how much it's supposed to be together or not. But both of them are flush with this surface here, so I think that's what it's supposed to be. So I'm still waiting on parts for this machine, and the last thing I did was put this crank seal in, the rear crank seal. And I'm not happy about the way that went in and the way it looks right now. It's just like uneven, and so I don't know, this is just a lot of work for something that wasn't leaking as far as I could tell, but it almost seems like it has more of a chance of leaking now. So what I did is I went ahead and reordered this seal, and then I ordered the parts to put this seal in here, which if you try to get it from John Deere, it's like, I think it was like $500. It's been a while since I looked, but it was some ridiculous cost like that. Maybe it was even more than that. So I found another one that was like a knockoff for like 150 bucks, which is still a lot of money for something I'm going to use once to put in a seal. So I got that, and I also got another tool to put in the front crankshaft seal. So at this point, I want to take this one out, put a new one in, do it the right way, so that I have peace of mind that I didn't just take this engine out of this machine for nothing. So the first thing I need to do is remove this one. In the manual, they tell you how to do it. Basically, you just drill 2 holes and then you put a sheet metal screw in there, and then they don't tell you how to pry it, but I'm just going to use a hammer with a claw on it to pry it. And remember, I put that adhesive on the outside, so it's not going to come out easy. There we go. I'm sure there was nothing wrong with that seal, but you know what? It's just not worth it. Man, what a waste of money. This thing doesn't even come close to lining up here. It's like 1/8 of an inch off from the bolt holes. Of course, I already got the sealant on here, so it's like a crunch right now trying to get this done. I'm getting really fed up with John Deere and then all these companies making this crap. Like, yeah, I get it, they're trying to save you some money from not having to buy this ridiculously overpriced piece here, but then it doesn't even work, so what's the point? No matter what way I put this, because there's this locating dowel right here, you can only put it in a certain position and then the bolt holes don't line up. I've tried every which way. This is the only way that's even close, and it's not close. The only thing I can think of is that I'm just going to have one bolt in here. It's the only thing I can think of, which is ridiculous. And then again, it's not aligned right. Like, this part isn't even touching this part right here. It's way over here. Oh man, I'm getting frustrated. You guys see me, I don't get frustrated easily, but this kind of stuff frustrates me, like a lot. I got this stuff just setting up as we talk. I wonder if I can pull out that dowel. I didn't think so. This thing is like built into this. Nope, not gonna happen. At this point, I'm just gonna use a hammer and I'm gonna put this in. Just gonna kind of do it evenly. Well, I guess it is what it is. Not much I can do about it now. But I am not waiting a few more weeks and buying a $500 plus tool. Not happening. They want you to trim off this excess. I guess this is just to keep it together while you put it in. Yeah, I know this is really dirty, but the plan was to put it all back together so it's covered up. Oil pan on, head on, everything, and then pressure wash it off before I put it back in. I know some people think I do things backwards sometimes, but there's usually a reason why. In this case, the head was already off when we took the motor out. So hopefully we'll have better luck putting in this one. This is just plastic. I like that. That's looking good. So right now I'm trying to check cylinder liner protrusion, or they call it standout. Basically you're trying to measure the amount of the liner that's above the deck of the block, and it should be between 1 and 4 thousandths, and from one to the next there should only be a maximum of 2 thousandths of a difference. So what I've been doing is, so I don't actually have the right tool, but you can kind of do it with just a dial indicator. So I've just been clamping down each liner with some thick washers. You're supposed to actually torque them down, but as long as you get them pretty tight. Take the dial indicator, and on 4 different places you want to basically just put the gauge right next to the liner, magnetize it, and you want to make sure that you're on a nice flat surface, because otherwise when you rotate it'll be kind of giving you a false reading. But basically you can see what we're at now. So it's a good idea to do it a few times, because you end up with different readings if you don't. Right about at the 4 thousandths. So the end of the cylinder liner is right there, and then the block is right there. So that's 4 thousandths. Every one of them is being about 4 thousandths. So you can see it's just about 4 thousandths. and you're measuring to the outside of the step, not the inside. The inside here is stepped up quite a bit, but you want to get the reading for the outside step of this liner, right where it meets up with the block. I don't know why it's at the top of the limit, but it definitely doesn't need any shims. Normally, you worry more about too little of protrusion, because then the head gasket doesn't seal up right, and then you end up putting shims around on the top here, right underneath the surface here. There's a little lip. You put a shim in there, but I don't need any shims. I really want to get that crane out of that door because I got overhead doors ordered, and they're going to be coming in any day, and I want to put them in as soon as possible. So I need to get that crane out of here. So I think what we're going to do is tape up the surface here real good so nothing gets in there. I'm going to take this outside, pressure wash it down, and then we're going to go ahead and install it in the machine and push the axle forward, and then that way we can get that crane out of there. That's the goal right now, and that'll definitely be a huge step, because that crane is not only in the way here but also outside. It takes up a lot of room in the driveway because I haven't expanded that way yet, so we're like working around the back side of this thing, and plus we can't even put the overhead door on, so it's hard to keep it cool in here because it's like been 90 something degrees every day, and we got some air conditioners running, and it's not really doing a whole lot because of those doors. It would have been a whole lot easier to put this head on before I put it back in the machine, but it also wasn't that hard to take the head out while it was still in the machine. And I guess a plus to doing it like this is that we don't have the extra weight added onto the head. So I guess that's something, but it's not like I'm lifting it by hand, so I don't know if that really matters too much. That's horrible. You're good. Horrible. Yeah, I might need you to press on this shaft here. Yeah. There we go. No, it shouldn't move, right?
Doesn't seem to.
'Cause I'm free. Free ballin'. Huh?
Something.
Go.
Looks like something. Alright, you're gonna have to it's gotta go down a little bit. Just a smidge. Just a smidge, Ruby. More than a smidge. Huh. Come on. Stupid thing.
How's the angle? Be
You're
risky
really close
though.
on the top.
It's really risky though. You gotta really be careful with that thing. You break these studs off. Good.
You gotta use 2 hands when you do it.
Seems like your side needs to go in more.
How's that?
Here we go.
How's that? Alright.
I would, before you let down at all anymore, I would definitely, let's get a nut or a
We
bolt
need
on that.
nuts and bolts. They're all in that box. Oh, you know what we didn't do?
Yeah,
Son of a...
I knew it was too easy.
Normally you don't have to do that.
Yeah, you know what's really weird about that? I think I told you before. The starter goes in there. So how's that, like, that doesn't even make sense. I think it just leaks a little bit of fluid on the bottom is what it is. It's not like pressurized with fluid all the way up to the top. It's like just a little bit of, and the starter's way up, so I don't know. Doesn't really make sense to me. We forgot to put sealant on here, but can't blame us. It's not very typical to do that. I don't know why it's done here, but it's better to do it now than when it's all bolted up and a lot more work has been done. Really doesn't make sense why there's fluid in there, but the starter goes into there, so the starter is going to see some of that fluid. Doesn't really make sense to me, but it is what it is.
The old-fashioned dumb way.
Well, try again.
Second time's a charm.
she be? Yep, there you go. That's it. You're good. I can get my bar back. It's already sliding.
Huh?
It's already going. It's like butter. I wish I could get more than one click at once. I need like a shorter pipe is what I really do. I don't even know what I'm
Just
worried
get in there and do it. You got 4 pounds of tension. You'll know when that thing is even close to breaking.
Almost.
Man, I can about to pull that with my arm.
I could probably push it. If we keep that on the fire, we could probably just roll it.
I can't keep up. Oh, I'm at the end of my rein here.
That's okay, we can just push it with the tires.
You think so?
Yeah, no, we just were. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Come on. 1, 2, 3. Come on. 1, 2, 3. Now's a chance to check and see if things are going to get bound up there. Hooray! Keep going. Alright, let's try it again. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
am so ready to get this crane out of here. It's been here for well over a month, and it's just in the way. And now there's a lot more room to work back here too. Plus we put the engine in, which was taking up room over there, and all the parts for it. So yeah, we're gaining space like by the minute here. So right now I want to kind of address something that I don't know what to really do about, but for some reason it wasn't leaking before, but now it's leaking right around this drive shaft seal. The yoke for it has a seal around, and it's leaking, and it's never done that before, but I suppose I really need to do something with that. And the problem with this transmission is I don't know where to get any parts for it. This is a Rockwell, and it's got some crazy long number to it. It's not a very common transmission. Well, it probably is, but they don't make them anymore, I'm pretty sure. So I've tried so hard to find parts for this thing, and I just cannot find them. So I'm thinking that I want to take this drive shaft yoke off and look to see if I can find a number on that seal before I do anything. I don't want to pull the seal out until I know that I can get another one. So I need to either try to match it up with dimensions, or I need to find some part numbers on it, or possibly make some more phone calls and see if I can locate the seal some other way. So there's an O-ring right there. Let's see. Oh wow. I think that just comes out of there like that. Alright. Now wait a minute. If I kind of pry it against this, there we go.
Was that it falling into the bucket?
Yep. So I did manage to find a new seal for here. This is a double lip, full metal case, 2.75 inches inside diameter and 3.75 outside diameter. And I had to cross-reference this several times to get to this one that was local, and it was like 40 bucks. But I'm just glad to see that I got something, so now I can put it back in without having to order anything, and hopefully it'll work. Alright, so yesterday we got the engine pulled in and we got all the hydraulics and electronics hooked up. Now it's time to replace some coolant hoses. These are the old ones and they're not in the greatest shape, and it's easy to replace them now before I put in the radiator. So one coolant hose has got to go through that hole right there and then loop up to right there. And then the other one can't go in until the head is on, which I should be getting tomorrow, hopefully. I'm just trying to get everything wrapped up today so that when I get the head tomorrow, I can slap that in real quick, because it should only take me an hour or two to button everything up at that point. That'd be really nice. But yeah, we did a lot of work off camera last night. Hooked up everything, all the hydraulics and all the electronics, tested out the electronics, and yeah, it helps to have a video to go over so you can see what hoses go where. A lot of times I will label them with colored zip ties, but I kind of got lazy this time and I didn't do that. But luckily I had the video to chase all the details. That's just in that little elbow. Okay. I just have no idea. Okay. All right. So go up. There you go. That one should be.
Once you get them threaded in just a little bit.
See, this really doesn't make sense. Here I am on the bottom of the machine, and this part of the radiator is an oil cooler for the transmission, and it's got like a bypass hose. Just goes from one end to the other. The only thing I can think of is that maybe the volume going through that cooler isn't enough, and they added that for extra volume, so that part of it won't get cooled, but at least there's some cooling. That's the only thing I could think of. And what I didn't show you guys, because I turned the camera off, was we struggled for hours to get this radiator in, because there's a shroud that goes around. There's these bars that hold this radiator on the side, and there's bolts that go through the bar, but the shroud also goes between the radiator and those bars. So you have to get the shroud aligned just right, up and down and forward and backwards, just right for those bolts to go through and then make it into the radiator. And you can't see anything, so you're kind of guessing from the side. So you got to get the shroud lined up, the radiator lined up with the bars without looking. Yeah, we struggled for hours, and here it is like 8 o'clock at night, and I finally just got done. That was a pain, and if I ever have to take this radiator out again, I'm gonna take my mag drill and drill holes right where the bolts go so I can see something. Because the only thing I could do is stick my phone in there with the camera on, and I could take a picture, and then I would adjust a little bit, and then take another picture and adjust it. And I did that like 1,000 times, and that's after struggling for like an hour without doing that. But anyways, I'm making progress, so I'm still happy, and I should still be getting the head tomorrow. So I think at this point there's really not much more we can do besides put in the axles and fill up some fluids. That's about it. Waiting on that head.
Oh, look at that slide nicely now. All right. Oh yeah.
Oh, might as well just go in while we're at it.
Anything in there like dowels or something?
Yep. So we just put this head on here, and the dowels are way smaller than the hole that they go in. And we just pulled this head off of here and pulled the head gasket off, and you can see the evidence of where that hole is. It's way bigger than that dowel. Same thing with that one. So that dowel does not locate this head to where it needs to be. So I guess the bolts do it. I don't really know what to think of this. It's exactly the same with the old head as it is with the new one, and I don't know why. So I guess we're just going to kind of align it the best we can and hope for the best.
I guess the only thing those dowels do is keep the gasket in the right place.
Yeah, I guess.
Just like that. That stuff. Oh, clink. Now I guess if you look down the holes, you can kind of line it up like that.
Yeah, it's pretty good right now. I mean, it could go over just a little bit like that, I guess. This is really stupid. I don't know why this would be, but that's how it was.
Don't make no sense, but hey.
I don't know, maybe it's bolt concentric. I doubt it though.
Same one, but it's just clean.
Got the manual parts washer.
It's like cleaning a dirty old tarnished silver necklace. Brand new. You want to dip those in?
Thousands. That's pretty good. 18 on the exhaust.
Tack guns in it. Fine trim screws.
I drained out all the fuel because we had to move this tank because it was like half an inch in the way. So at this point, I'm ready to start this up. I think anyways. The only thing I wasn't able to do was prime the fuel system because the little lever that's on the lift pump isn't working. So I think I'm just gonna have to crank it over a bunch of times. Oh yeah, that sounds so much better. All right, I am so glad to be at this point. That sounded really good. Now I do have a little bit of a leak on one of the injectors where it goes in. It's leaking exhaust right where the injector goes in. So this seal kit gave me new seals for these injectors. These injectors are only about 1.5 years, 2 years old, so I didn't think they would need the seals, but I think I'm just gonna go ahead and take everything apart and put those seals on. And then this is also loud because that is not sealed up right there. I'm gonna do something with that as soon as I get everything fully wrapped up here. So I'm trying to rework this whole exhaust system here because this one never really worked that good. This has like an 1/8 inch gap around the whole thing, and you can see it was just leaking everywhere around there. And so it almost might as well have not been there. So the biggest problem is the clearance from here to here needs to be as short as possible because the cylinder from that boom comes down and it hits the top of this. Actually, it hits right there. You can see it hits right there. When I got this machine, this had a giant dent in it. I don't know how they made that dent. I don't know if they made it like that purposely or whether they just hit it a lot of times with the cylinder, but that worked. And then I redid this exhaust system, and I don't know how to get that dent back in there, so I need to keep everything as short as possible so it doesn't hit that cylinder. So what I did first was cut down this exhaust manifold. I took 1 inch off of it, which that inch might be all we need to make this work. And then to seal that up better, I used the 2.5 to 2 1/4, I think, adapter here, and I just cut most of it off so that it's only this little 1/2 inch right here. And this little part right here, I found seals that perfectly. So now when you put this on here, you push it in, it's perfectly sealed up, so there won't be any leaking coming out of there. So now what I need to do is cut as much of this off as I can and weld it onto the flange on there. I need to cut that off and weld this one on, and then I think everything will work. It'll be nice and quiet. But one thing I need to do as well is put some sort of flex pipe in here, because I think one of the reasons why this exhaust manifold keeps cracking is because there is no flex in anything. So when the engine moves around, that part is all solid with it, and this was bolted up here. So the muffler is bolted to the frame, which is solid right to the engine, and the engine's moving around. So we need some sort of flex somewheres. So it's not going to be easy because the only straight part we have is right here, and that's not very long. I don't know if that's enough flex, but I think it's the only thing we can really do right now. So I think I'm just going to chop this off here, put a little bit of a flex pipe here, and that's about the best we can do. Luckily, these exhaust manifolds are cheap. So if I do crack one and I need to go another route, it only takes 5 minutes to take that off, and it's only like 60 bucks for a new one. So it's not too big of a deal, but still, I want to get this all solved. I wish the flex pipe would flex enough to go around this corner, because then I would just use this as my flex pipe, but it doesn't flex that much. Alright, I can make that work. So that's what I've come up with so far. So now I just need to weld this joint. And since I have it perfectly positioned right now, I'm going to put a couple tack welds on it, and then I'm going to take it off and weld it up nice. Alright, so if I put this right here, weld that onto there, that is perfect. Right there. Yeah, this is turned way down right now. I forgot about that. bubblegum weld I've ever done.
Don't look at that. Don't look at that. Just look at that. And then
That is like literally the most bubblegum weld I've ever done, but this stuff does not weld easily. It burns so quickly, so you end up having to just spot tack everything, and eventually you make your way around it, but yeah, I'm definitely not proud of that. I could not make it look any better though. I kept burning through that, and I had everything turned all the way down. I think if I was running .025 and a smaller MIG welder, that would have gone a lot better. I gotta get myself a Lincoln 140 or something. Try that.
for your prop.
That's nice. That accomplished a lot right there. Not only do we have flex now from the flex pipe, but it's quieter, the exhaust is sealed up.
And it didn't hit over here, which it looked like it was gonna.
But at least that pump doesn't leak anymore like it did before.
Yeah, it was way over full yesterday.
Not if you grab on it.
Well, it needs fluid then. We need a broom to sweep it off.
it down in the front and then come up.
There you go, and then come up. Good.
A little bit more up.
No, it's gotta go way up. Right?
Only 2 inches. There.
More forward.
Go up a little bit.
Okay, forward.
Yeah, there you go. Forward. I have no idea.
A little bit on my side. Good. Hopefully they go in.
Get back, Noah.
Now all I really have to do is move over a little bit. Just put the bolt in there, and then I'll put it back up.
Alright, you gotta go up with it, I think. Oh no, actually, it's good. Good! Good!
I ain't going nowhere.
She's done!
Oh no.
No,
No, you're doing dumb things. Don't do dumb things.
we can go from outside and bring it inside.
You ruined it.
This is why we can't have nice things.
has maxed.
Whoa! All right, so just to give you guys a little update here, we had a few hiccups. So when I had this radiator out, I figured it would be a good idea to bring it into the radiator guy and just have it checked over, and anything that needed to be fixed, he can fix it, and if not, he can just return it and say it's good. So he had it for a couple days, and at first he said everything was good, he can't find any leaks, he's going to send it back, and then he called back and said he found a leak between the radiator and the cooler on the bottom, which is for the transmission. He said there was a very, very small leak, and it took him a while to find it, and that I probably shouldn't even worry about it, but it is there. He wanted to let me know. I got a little discouraged, and I was like, oh, well, do you think you can get me another radiator, or do you think you can build me another one or something? He's like, honestly, I wouldn't even worry about it. Yeah, I just run it the way it is. And I was like, well, I really don't want any water to get into the transmission. This transmission could be a nightmare to rebuild if something goes wrong with it. And he was like, oh, if anything would happen, it would just be the oil would go into the antifreeze. And I was like, well, that's not the end of the world, but it's still something. So I just kind of forgot about it, and I put it back in, and I ran this for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, and I checked the transmission fluid, and it was absolutely just nothing but milk in there. A lot of antifreeze went into the transmission, and I had just filled it up with, like, I don't know, almost $200 worth of fluids. And also I put, you know, $60 or $80 worth of antifreeze in it too. So I had to drain all that out, and basically what I did was bypass the cooler on here. So I'm just letting that bottom fill up with antifreeze because there's a pinhole in there, and I took the lines that come off. That's part of it right there. There was 1-inch lines that came back here going in and out of this radiator, and I just took those lines. I took one of them off, and I took the other one and looped it back to itself. And the reason I did that instead of trying to mess with a cooler is because I seriously doubt I even need a cooler on this. If you were running this at full speed in 4th gear all day, you might need that. But for the amount of driving that I do with this machine, I don't think I'll ever need a transmission cooler. But it's a good test right now to find out. Every time I run it, I'm just gonna feel that hose carefully. And if it's crazy hot, then I'll just have to get an external cooler. And I think what I'll do is put it behind this radiator right here. I'll make a little mount, place it right there. And I think just the fan going through that radiator would be fine. But if I really need it, I can put an external electric fan right there. So it's not the end of the world. It's just I wish I would have figured that out before I filled it all up with fluids, and then now still I have milk in that transmission. So now I'm hoping that I can run it a few times and then pop the drain plug off, and then the water should hopefully come out the bottom. I think what I really need to do is run it for 5 or 10 minutes, let it cool off, let it settle down, and then the water will be all on the bottom. And I need to do that several times to get all that water out of there, or antifreeze, if you will. But this takes 30 weight oil for the transmission, and it takes like almost 6 gallons of it. And then the radiator takes, I think, 4 or 5 gallons in that. So I just put brand new coolant hoses on here, and believe it or not, they degrade very fast when you have any kind of oil in there. So what I got to do is, in the radiator, I got to keep running it and letting the oil skim off the top, and then hopefully that will cure that without having to drain that again. You're really supposed to flush it a few times, but I think there's very minimal amount of oil going into the radiator. I think mostly it was antifreeze going into the transmission, and so you can skim that oil off the top there, and you can get the water off from the bottom here. So I think that's the plan right now. I just got to keep running it. But yeah, that's one of those things where, you know, it's just a hold up, I guess, and some money, wasted time. I should have just left that radiator alone, but I thought I was doing the right thing by bringing it in to have it checked out. And I think what happened is he probably just put too much pressure between the two of them. So it probably would have failed eventually. So it may be a blessing in disguise, because I wouldn't have really known later on. Right now I'm still religiously checking fluids all the time to make sure everything's all right. But later on down the road, when everything is all good, and if that would have failed, I might not have known for a while because I wouldn't have been checking fluids so much. So yeah, it's probably a blessing in disguise to just deal with it now. And I don't think I could find another radiator like this. Maybe I could have one built. I don't know how that really works, but I don't really care about the cooler on the bottom because I can put an external one in very easily. There's plenty of room here. It's not a problem, even if I have to put a fan in. Even if I have to put it somewhere else in the machine, like up front, because that's where the lines are coming from, up here. I could put a cooler right here, and that would still work too. So I have many options, but I don't even think I need that. I'm just going to run it the way it is and see if it even gets hot. I doubt it will, because I use the boom function more than I do the travel function, so I highly doubt that I'm going to need it. All right, so I've been trying to get a neat little outro together for this video to end it, but I seem to be running into one problem after another with this machine, and it just randomly started happening. The first thing is this one tire back here just all of a sudden started leaking. I think there's a tube inside of it, and I think the tube got damaged. So I've been fiddling around with this all day, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get this fixed anytime soon. The other thing was, like I said before, I had the antifreeze go into the transmission, so I've been flushing it and flushing it and flushing it and flushing it, and I can't seem to get all the antifreeze out of there. So at this point, I've went through probably about $400 to $500 worth of oil, and I still need to flush it out a few more times. And the manual for the transmission says that I need to use a 30 weight oil. So I've been getting that 30 weight oil from everywhere's around, and I've depleted all of my resources, and now I have to go further to get more. I already had to drive an hour to get what I've got, and if I run out of that, I got to drive like an hour and a half to go get more. I don't know what to do at this point besides just keep flushing it. Every time I do it, I put 5 gallons in, I run it for 5 minutes, and it's immediately milky again, and then I drain it out, and I've taken the filters out. I've done everything I can think of to try to get all that antifreeze out. And I guess all it takes is a very little bit of coolant or water to contaminate a lot of oil. So I guess we'll just keep working on that. But I don't really want to run it that much until I get that fixed. And obviously I can't do anything until I get this rim situation fixed. So here's the tire and the rim, and all of a sudden it just started pouring air out of this spot right here, and I'm pretty sure there's a tube inside of here. And the next thing that happened was I tried to take this apart, and I got the ring off, and I tried to get the tire off, and I could not get it off. I had the skid steer 3 feet in the air on the front pushing down on this, and it could not break this bead. And then when I put it back together, now it's leaking around the valve stem, and you cannot turn that valve stem. So I'm pretty sure there's a tube in here, but I don't have any way of knowing for sure. So I'm trying to find a whole nother rim and tire all together, and it's not easy. This has an 11-inch opening for the final drive. It's 10 lugs, and the lugs are 13 1/8 on center apart from each other, from this one to this one. And this is a 24-inch rim, and these tires are 13-inch by 24, so it's for a grader. So I can find the tires pretty easily, but finding a rim that fits this is not easy. But this video was all about rebuilding the engine, so that is done. That works very well. There's no smoke. I'm pretty much past the breaking in point, and it's had no issues whatsoever. It's really nice because now you can do any function you want without the fear of it stalling like it did before. Before you had to rev it up quite a bit, otherwise it would stall, and now it doesn't do that at all, so that's good. All the functions are just in general much faster. But like I said, I needed a new head, so I bought a head online, and I brought it over to my machine shop, at the same time I picked up the other one, I dropped that one off there and I said, hey, just look over this thing. It's probably all right, but I just want you to look it over before I put it in. That way, if it needs anything, you can do it now. So he looked it over and it needed to be resurfaced. The exhaust side also needed to be resurfaced because that was out a little bit. And he also said that the valves needed to be replaced. And while he was in there, he was just going to do the valve seals and new springs and everything. So that head is like brand new. Everything, he even painted it and everything. That did take a long time. He said it wasn't totally necessary to do all that work, but while it was there, it was probably a good idea. The first thing he did was magnaflux it to check for cracks. So this is the old head here, and it's been sitting out, so it's a little bit rusted, but on the other side of this, so on the bottom here, it's probably hard for you to see, but you can still see the cracks because the magnaflux lets it show up a lot better. I'm trying to find a really bad one. There was a really, really bad one on here. But regardless, all it takes is one crack and you want to replace it. But also, again, you guys can't really see that, but that valve seat is totally burnt. So this one right here, that's like a 100 thou recess right there. So that valve seat is totally burnt. Let me see here. Yeah, even over here. This one's really bad right there and right there. Wow, that's really bad. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's like a huge gouge out of there. So you lose compression when that happens. It just doesn't run right. So that was definitely part of the problem that I had with this telehandler. But obviously you guys saw that I had that huge ring gap too, so that was definitely a problem as well. There's a crack right there in between those two valves. So when the valve seats are worn like they are, what happens is when you're running it anything above an idle, this head is going to get really hot from that, and you're going to start breaking other stuff. So that's why it's important to fix burnt valve seats when they happen. But anyways, what I set out to fix on this video is fixed. This is out of the garage. It's out of the way so that we don't have to have the crane in there. We don't have to have that in there. We can move on to other things. So I guess that's it for this video, guys, and I will catch you on the next one. What are you doing? You stealing my stuff?
That was not mine. You see, oh, all the wrong ones isn't mine because I need them.
Yeah.
I need all the wrong ones. You can take this one.
Oh, I can have that?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
And a smaller one.
Oh, thanks.
And this.
Oh, these are no good?
Yeah.
Oh, gee, thanks. I get the no good ones?
And then you can get a good one. I think this is garbage.
Yeah.